Welcome back, people. So I know E3 is finished and I'm a little late to the party, but I was so focused with Detroit Become Human that I actually just couldn't do it any sooner. But I still want to give my 2 cents on the kind of stuff that we're going to see in the future of gaming. The ones I would predominantly want to touch on are Call of Duty and Battlefield. So a lot of people are quite disappointed about the idea of Black Ops 4 and Battlefield 5 being in their current state. And I'm pretty disappointed at that too, and all my hopes and expectations for this year are pretty much ruined with those 2 titles. But in today's episode I just want to give a little reaction and my own 2 cents on how things might actually end up if these 2 games actually do follow this path. So let me start it off by saying it like this. I personally went to business school, and the purpose of a company is not to give people what they want or give people what they need. It's about making money. That is the only thing. And sometimes that includes doing some pretty shady things. Year after year, we've continuously seen that what people want is being ignored for what sells. And the justification that this is because it sells because people want it. Although that's not always the case. Especially when you come to certain brands with a fan base that has grown up with this certain idea. And I'm going to give a very good example on how this works with these 2 games. Let me start with Call of Duty because that one is much more evident. So as we've all noticed with Call of Duty's more technological stance on things, Call of Duty mainly wanted to feature its own brand name in a sort of other kind of popular genre. We all know the success of Halo and how it looked in recent years. 3 Call of Duty oriented games were going in that favor. And because that they saw the sustainable growth of Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3 was pretty good, they thought the same would apply to Infinite Warfare. And I guess you all remember how that worked out. To this day, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare is still the 2nd most disliked video on YouTube. I mean, let that sink in. People actually like the song Friday by Rebecca Black, Miley Cyrus's Mental Breakdown, and Nicki Minaj's Stripper Audition more than they like the trailer for Infinite Warfare. The only song that people dislike more is Justin Bieber's Baby. But the point is, you all saw how people reacted when Call of Duty was going into a brand that they didn't want, just so that the investors could make money for something that was a popular genre at the time. And then we had Call of Duty World War II, which I personally didn't like. The entire game was basically just a response to Battlefield 1. Everything in this game was just mirrored from Battlefield 1. From playable female characters, to fighting trains, to flight simulators. I mean, you could tell that they were lazy with this from the entire title. I mean, look, Call of Duty World War II. Who names a World War II game World War II? And as usual, you now have Black Ops 3, which is the new game. This has been the furthest step from the typical of Call of Duty they've done to date. I was really disappointed to see the fact that it won't even have a campaign and it'll just look like a knockoff of Black Ops 3. Now, how this resonates to what is popular? Well, here on YouTube, my friend Admiral Ascent made a video with the game Plague Incorporated where he called the worldwide disease Fortnite. And he is quite accurate. Fortnite is a very popular game that has basically gripped everyone. It has even been considered an addiction. And what do when you have a lot of money? You're going to have a lot of investors who are going to want to make that money. This Call of Duty will only feature a multiplayer and a battle royale. With this current mentality, they are only trying to turn Call of Duty into Fortnite just because it sells. That's the only reason why. And that's why a lot of people are quite pissed. I'm seeing comments that says Modern Warfare was the last good Call of Duty game. Who knows what's going to happen next time, and if the next Call of Duty game will have a campaign just like this one won't. And Battlefield follows in this exact same path. We all remember Battlefield Hardline. A lot of people didn't like the game. They said it sucked completely because they basically portrayed Battlefield with a CSI Miami kind of style, which pissed off a lot of people because the game had nothing to do with an actual battlefield. But hey, CSI Miami was popular at the time, so why not just incorporate it there? And Battlefield 5 kind of fits into that same category. A lot of people quite expected to see Battlefield 5 be the sequel to Battlefield 4, basically continuing the story from there, and that it would be a World War III game. And if you know me, I love me some World War III games. So anyone who was expecting that kind of game was pretty disappointed. And what's worse is that the game itself doesn't look too good. The trailer got a lot of hate and the game just isn't formatted very well. I mean, look at this. A woman with a prosthetic limb killing a guy with a club. I mean, is this World War II or Cyberpunk? And if that's not enough, the game is getting its own battle royale, just like Fortnite and Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
So, our launch in October is just the beginning. You will all go on an expanding journey through the Second World War. No loot boxes, no premium pass. Every day will bring something new. And as part of that journey, after launch, you'll get something I know a lot of you have been asking for.
It's Royale. It's Royale reimagined for Battlefield. So we bring those pillars of Battlefield with destruction, team play, vehicles into this new experience. So we will bring you experience that you haven't played before.
So the bottom line is, and this is not just in the video game industry, but it has quite been proven over and over again that corporations do not see their consumers as people. They just see them as resources. They think their fan base is so loyal that they're just going to buy anything they have regardless of what it is. And that is what pisses people off. And if you think that Call of Duty or Battlefield are too big of names to fail, well, history begs to differ. If you want an example of a good game that was very popular that fell because it drifted too much to what sold, look no further than Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor started in 1999 when director Steven Spielberg met with DreamWorks to make a Saving Private Ryan version of the game GoldenEye. And at the time, the game sold pretty well. It actually upped the PlayStation's chances against the Nintendo because the gameplay was just realistic. And I'm not talking about the graphics, I'm talking about the actual gameplay, which was very realistic. And that success made it into even more games, and which is what made Medal of Honor kind of its own thing. Over the next several years, it was handed off to different developers, all of which had very similar graphics and game design. For years, the game scored between 70s and 90s, all with very similar patterns. Show me a game that does that today. One very popular game was Medal of Honor Allied Assault, which is ultimately what opened its doors to the wider audience. Now, funny thing how Medal of Honor started entering this big Hollywood fame kind of style. EA wanted to acquire the developers 2015 Inc., which had the rights to it at the time. This would open more doors to Medal of Honor, but a lot of employees didn't like the idea of being strong-armed by this big publishing company. So they left and formed their own video game company. And can you guess which that video game company was? Infinity Ward! So from there you can pretty much connect the dots as to which game they made. Over the next decade or so, Call of Duty outmatched Medal of Honor in every single fashion. And things really kicked off in 2007 with the making of the game Modern Warfare, the game which set the stage for all contemporary modern shooter games. Medal of Honor tried to compete with that with its own sort of Modern Warfare games, but these games weren't relatively successful. In fact, Medal of Honor Warfighter received ratings well within its 50s. A lot of people called it a Battlefield wannabe that simply didn't measure up. The game sold 300,000 copies in its first week and then sold 3 million copies in its first year. And if you want to look at this from an investor's point of view, these are really poor results. After the game's release and commercial bomb, EA director Peter Morsch said, "The gameplay was solid, but focus on combat authenticity didn't resonate with the consumers." Which, if you want to translate from corporate talk, they're basically blaming the consumers for not liking the game. Basically saying they did their job and no one else did theirs. And if you want to entrust the things you like to your companies, you can easily see that this is too bad an apology that it's insulting. They should have just actually come out and said, hey, we made a bad game, we'll try harder next time. And if you want to go into the replacement of the game, well, I'll get to that right now. EA also had another game series which grew quite well called Battlefield. And with their first big commercial success being in 2011 with Battlefield 3, it was quite evident that this game would become EA's new war shooter and the perfect competitor to Call of Duty. Remember how I said that Medal of Honor Warfighter sold 3 million copies in its first year? Well, Battlefield 3 had 3 million copies pre-ordered. So if you want to take into account Medal of Honor Warfighter's poor sales results, combined with the fact that it doesn't make sense for EA to compete with themselves, you kind of have fertile ground as to why Medal of Honor was axed in the first place. Now, all the shit talking aside, I just have to say, we gamers, all of us, should give a big old salute to Medal of Honor. This is the game that started the war shooter genre in the first place and paved the way for all the others we play today. All those modern war shooter games that we play today, from Call of Duty to Battlefield to Tom Clancy to Homefront to Frontlines, owe their existence to Medal of Honor, as we really have to give this game the Medal of Honor for starting it all. Now, the moral of the story is you pretty much get the picture. A pretty well-respected and well-known video game company eventually gets lazy and leads to its downfall. Then another new, fresh company steps up to the rescue and gives the people what they want, which then becomes a headache to the already well-known video game company. And this is exactly what's going to happen to both Call of Duty and Battlefield if they don't step up their game and finally give their fanboys, who are very loyal, what they want. One game that's coming out this year is a game which is quite literally called World War III. I'm actually quite excited. I'm a little disappointed that it won't have a campaign either, but I actually talked to the developers and they said they might do it in the future. And it is very evident that this could become the new Call of Duty / Battlefield. People in the comments were actually saying, I'm going to play this instead of either Call of Duty or Battlefield. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I also want to give a big thank you to Steven for participating in this video. Say hi to him, everybody. And I'm going to be coming up with the new game. As I said, this year is pretty booked, so we're going to see how it all comes. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the new game. Bye!